Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I hope we have a windstorm up in our area. It's been quite windy where we are, so I'm hoping that I don't sleep well when any of those things happen. It's just not good for me. The noises outside, the wind blowing around, so just meh.
They had tornado warnings in Iowa.
Oh, what, really?
So, yeah. I know. I think my sister-in-law had to go to the basement just because of the weather. So I'm like, oh, great, because they said it might be stronger than the whatever they call the Doce or whatever.
Yep.
That was last year or 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I did scary stuff, and there was just another series of bad weather went through. I can't remember. Was it Kentucky that just came through and knocked?
Oh, yeah.
Another series of tornadoes. So just scary stuff.
So encouraging for the Christmas season.
No trees down, but certainly a lot of hanging branches. And
people were worried about losing power from tree branches falling down. When we lived in our old house, there was a lot of trees in the neighborhood, and almost every time a windstorm came through, we were guaranteed to lose power. So the new house doesn't have nearly as many old trees nearby, so they don't shed as many branches apparently. So stay safe, everyone. Anyways, let's jump into some topic stuff today. So today's topic is going to be kind of around our certified and or promoted data sets. Let's define what they are, and then how do we use them? Like what are some best practices, or where have you seen these working well and maybe not well? Tommy, you want to kick us off there with some, give us some definitions of what a certified and promoted data set looks like?
A little Q&A. Yeah, absolutely. So I am excited for this one because I've never seen a session or really a lot devoted to this. Obviously there's documentation.
Yep.
But this is one of those kind of features that not necessarily is like, oh, this is essential to what you do, or at least that's not what I've seen from sessions, from topics, from blogs. But basically what we're talking about today is the ability to basically label or give a badge of honor to a data set in Power BI. And there's two ways you can do that. You can promote a data set, which is basically the idea, which is a little subjective, but it's basically giving a label saying, hey, the author or the admin has promoted this data set, saying, look at this data set. The difference that in the same admin setting, what you can do is certify a data set, which saying we have officially certified this data set, its quality. But you can also do this on Power BI apps as well, and certify or promote a Power BI app with it, which is kind of interesting, which I should have added to the agenda because that kind of put the
yeah, that's good.
Pretty sure we can talk about it.
I'm sure we can talk about it. Yeah, it's not too late. But the idea is basically for the consumers, for an organization, rather than just saying we have a data set, is saying we're promoting this or we have certified this. So that's kind of the intro, and I think that leaves a lot to be discussed and a lot to I think for an organization and for us as Power BI admins to, okay, what does that mean? What are the actual consequences, so to speak, of doing that?
So there's two parts to this kind of question, at least like in the what are they? What are they doing? Right. One is we're talking specifically to PowerBI.com, the service. This is not something this is not something you do in desktop. This is only like a service level thing. And the only two areas that we're aware of, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy, the only two places you can do this, you can certify or promote a data set, and you can certify you can certify an app. Now, can you promote an app?
Yes.
You can do both. Okay. And then this is interesting because this is some topic stuff that Melissa Coates goes over in her class around data governance that I think is very relevant here as well. I'll probably bring up a couple points later about that. Love it. Anything else that's around?
Well, I mean, the endorsement goes further, doesn't it? Data sets, data flows, and then the report types. Both types. Power BI
you can do data flows too,
and paginated. Okay. And then you guys said the app, right? So it's like those 5, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you can do with it in Power BI service. What does it mean though? Like what?
Right.
Like what is the difference? So who can promote stuff? What can be promoted data sets? I think anyone can, right? Anyone can. If you have the setting turned on in the admin tenant, I can promote a data set that I publish into the service or a workspace.
Right. So you can promote it, but then there's an admin setting that basically allows, if you want something certified, it would send a request to the Power BI admin.
Correct. So a certification is like a gatekeeper,
which you should set up, right?
Yeah, what you should have. that would be like a good quick win, right? If you're a Power BI admin, you're going to make sure that there's in the admin settings, there's somewhere to say for certified data sets, not everyone can do that. You have to have specific people approve
Right.
what a certified data set is.
Right. So you can send a request. So I guess the question then is, have you seen these be essential to a business? Why or why not? And then should they be?
So I want to back up
'Cause
1 second
okay,
because
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
talk about permissions, right?
Yep.
So you need to have edit permissions on a workspace, right? So like you're the
Mhm.
person that can actually deploy stuff to the service
Member
to
or
be able
contributor,
to
right?
promote,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Promote, and then the certification is separate.
Yeah.
Like it
Mhm.
needs
Yeah.
there's a finite number of people or group that can
Kick
actually
something in
certify
to
something,
certify.
Right.
right?
And I think that's a good gatekeeper area, right?
I agree with that. It's a
Think
governance thing,
it's a
right?
governance thing. Oh, everything comes back to governance. Literally every
So we
week we
said
talk about like another thing about governance, but this is another one of those where it's, you know, people who are going to be able to certify data sets. It's kind of important that you have standards around what is certified. And so I think this is where where Melissa Coates' class does a great job. What do we require for certification? There should be a list of rules that say these data sets can be certified and must follow these levels of approval, like or
right.
levels of like, okay, let me give you an example, tangible example. A certified data set cannot have a reliance on Excel data sheets. May not be like that. May be something that's a company
Right.
policy that you guys say certified is important to us. We don't want you pulling data from Excel. So that means if you're going to make that data set promoted, you have to make sure that it comes from, that Excel file or whatever the information has to be loaded into some sort of enterprise governed system for checks and balances.
So you raise an interesting point, basically, like what would qualify something as promoted as certified?
Mm-hmm.
Um, should that matter from business to business? Like, for example, the Excel thing do you think that's a universal policy? Like, what are some universal policies do you think should be around something being promoted or something being certified?
I think if you blanket statement like that, I think you're going to get yourself in a little bit of trouble because there's always going to be an exception to the rule somewhere.
Right.
But I do think on a organization or deployment level, whoever's deciding what the governance is, right? So this is kind of the question, right? Who decides what the rules are, right? Is this the COE? Is this a governing body? Is this the director of BI and intelligence? Does he define what those rules, or he or she define what those rules are? Like, I think it can fluctuate. I think it can vary, but regardless, I think you need to think of what is important to your company and what do you want. I don't know. I can't tell you the number of times I hate using Excel as a data source. Like for like relying on it to be right and correct all the time, and who can edit that Excel document? Can weirdo data get in? Like there's just
Well,
too many rooms for error.
It's like a SharePoint list,
it's a good
Mike,
thing you
and we
can't
know how much you
endorse
love
Excel
SharePoint.
workbooks
So
out on the service.
But I mean, that would be one thing I would say. Like if you're talking certified stuff, right? It shouldn't be coming from that. And I know, and again, Seth and I've done a lot of data warehouse development or data mart development. You have these layers of potentially enriched data, bronze, silver, gold. Does any data coming into any of these certified data sets come from silver? Maybe not. Maybe you say no. Maybe you say everything has to come from the gold layer.
So you're saying more about the data sources and the actual calculations within that data set to qualify it as certified.
I think it all applies, right? I mean, it's trust, right? At the end of the day, certified means trust. I can trust
Yes.
this, basically.
Should. Yes.
Should be able to, right?
Right.
So you have to
I
have
mean,
this level of like transparency to like, how did you get there?
yeah, regardless, I think if we're talking the difference between promoted and certified right now, I agree with Mike. There has to be, whether it's a governance body or
Mhm.
a person in an
Right.
organization, there has to be a review process of some sort that the
Correct.
organization understands and agrees to,
Yep.
right? From the standpoint that I would imagine, a pretty rigorous analysis of ensuring that data sources,
Mhm.
calculations,
Yep.
Mhm.
the data that's being presented to the end user in the report is almost 100% trustworthy.
Okay.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and because you can make big decisions based on the information that you're seeing, right? And if you start to
Mhm.
elicit or introduce into your workflows the idea of endorsement, it should carry a significant weight, because if you think about like any Power BI implementation or any report out there, right? Unless you're an avid user of the report and you know the data and you know it's accurate, or you know the person who wrote it, whatever the case may be, there's a whole bunch of factors that could play into, the scenario that you talk about, Tommy, all the time. This dude brings in this version of this report, and
Right.
that guy brings in that version of report, and this
Yeah.
How do you
this
know
lady
who's
brings
the
in
right
this
number?
version.
Yeah.
And they're both certified.
And then you
which would be
fight.
just
Well, then you
perfect.
fight. Well, that should never happen, right? Then you have governance problems,
Yeah.
or your certification process is wrong, and then you need to demote something, I guess,
Right.
or
Yeah.
solve that. But I think very few objects in your organization initially should ever be certified,
I would agree with
unless
that.
Yeah.
and then as you grow, and that would only mean that your back end and everything is in a state that's of perfection, where
Right.
you're like you're almost saying, like, to me, certification would be like somebody's job is on the line, right? That's how much trust we have in this endorsement process, to say
Yep.
that this data that you're looking at is is as good as it gets. There is nothing better in our organization.
So
So
almost like finance approved.
I mean,
Or
yeah.
call it whatever department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Sure.
care. I don't care. So like I'm thinking like stuff that I'm so let me think let me step back here just a moment. I'm thinking promoted is a little bit more of the wild west, because there really is less control around who can actually promote things or not. I can either just turn it on
Sure.
or off in the organization.
Mhm.
But things around certified, I'm really saying, like, again, we're trying to hone in on what is the trust, right? I think certified data sets come with an SLA. Define what it is. What is the service level agreement that data set will have, right? We're going to make sure we refresh the data, and it will be refreshed within. We'll send out an email
It's
when
another
it
side
doesn't
of it, yeah.
when it doesn't get when it again. These are the things that Melissa goes over. I'm not this smart for sure. I
You're
can't.
you're teaching me
But
Melissa's strategy.
exactly, yeah. But
But
this is the stuff where, like, it comes with an SLA, right? We're gonna say if the data is not loaded by 8 a.m., you get an email that says
Mhm.
this data was not loaded. Someone's monitoring the process, right? Someone's actively watching the table loads and the refresh cycle to make sure that there's an error. So like if that's happened, someone's being notified. It has a help desk ticket number. Like you can say if there's a problem with it, you can fill out a help desk ticket and say this data doesn't look right, and someone will respond and say, "Let me look into that. I'm going to check out that
Right.
data." And I think also you've identified, like, these are to me, these are like some of the check boxes you do before you get to certified.
Interesting. Yeah.
Someone's also there and saying there's a data owner of every kind of table or data source that's coming from it. And I've been
Okay.
talking with this with one of my clients around how do you like, there's always this I'm going to go back to Matthew Roach's pyramid of governed versus ungoverned data, right? At the bottom of the pyramid, we're going to have a lot more data sources that are kind of on this ungoverned space. How do you know when you get into this certified space, where did the data come from? I think that's like, show me the lineage a bit, right? I think that's important too, because you're going to always have this area of the data lake or your data mart things that's kind of experimental. People are going to naturally just copy data
Right.
out if you don't give them that. So I think you don't want to hold people's hands and tie them and say, yeah, you can't do anything with the data. Here's a read-only table, and you can only read it, and you can't move it anywhere else. I think you automatically limit yourself, and people are going to go dump it to Excel, do ad hoc analysis on the side, and that's what you don't want. I want you to do ad hoc analysis. I want to be able to see what you're doing, so then way we have like this, Purview or other tools that can map the lineage of every report. I think every report should have a lineage map. Like someone should be able to go to the Power BI report and say, show me the sources of data. And you should be able to click on something, and you should at least be able to see, where did this data come from? Hey, there's these 5 gold tables. Here's where that came from. Oh, we're using this other SQL Server table. That's where that came from. And you have at least someone can have some record or some semblance of checking out what's going on.
Right. So we talk about a lot of the pitfalls. What are some of the benefits for doing promotion or certified?
yeah, before you move there, though, I mean,
Okay.
to Mike's point, and why I'm glad it's part of the certification process, is you can add a link to that documentation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like, so when you're certifying something, that, like, it should be, and I'm glad it's part of, like, literally, if you're going to certify this, you need to tell people all of those things.
Yeah.
So where's your documentation?
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Like, so it's a good thing that you can do that when you're
Oh, and
hitting that
too,
level.
documentation. Yeah.
so that specific problem is already addressed in their solution, which is nice.
But I like these. I think these are clear. I mean, some of the things we're talking about here, there are some clear gates to get to certified, right? I know, like,
Should be, yeah.
but to me, these are like good hurdles, right? Someone comes to you and said, this should be certified, or we need this data, or our C-level executives are doing this. Anything that's above a certain pay grade to look at data probably should be going through some sort of certification process or vetting process,
Mm-hmm.
at least a peer review.
But at the same time, though, then it like the nice thing is if you adopt the endorsement in your data sets and reports, right? Then you have, I think, part of the like you add to that part of the conversation when your organization may not be cognizant of it. And what I mean by that is like organizations are just whipping reports out. Like you have
Mm-hmm.
report authors all over the place.
Yep.
Great. We can use promotions. So you can tell people, hey, it's only stuff that you really are confident in that should be promoted, but it doesn't stop anybody from promoting it.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So, but at the same time, Mike, to your point, depending on who's viewing the report and depending on, I think, on the decisions that are being made from that report,
Yes.
if that's a C-level report and your organization knows that there are endorsement levels and or that decision making body goes like, why don't I have a certification on this? Why is this data set or report that I'm looking at not certified? Like, then you can have the conversation. Well, it's going to take us 2 weeks to like review from end to end all of the different things we need to ensure that no matter what, like what you're looking at is accurate. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, go do that. Right? Like we're making big
Mm-hmm.
decisions based on this data.
Yeah.
It's really important. Like you bring that, I think, to the forefront of the conversation, because that's not to say that um, people building reports, whether you're a BI engineer or a person on the front line, isn't trying to build the most accurate thing or tying out the numbers in some way, because you are obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be a valuable report.
Yep.
But that's different than governance type things where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, we have a methodology that we believe is important to verify that our data source is accurate, and we're going to vet the pipeline, and then
Yep.
we're going to vet the calculations, and we have this exception report page, which tells us when data isn't going into the report like we would expect.
Yep.
And we have this, and we have like that is a process that you can apply the same way to every single data source, model, report, etc., which instills that trust factor, that gold seal that you're going to stick on there. That's the certification. And there are probably points where an organization is, yep, that's worth the squeeze,
Yep.
right?
Yep. This you're seeing. I think all these are really, really important. I think another one that I'm thinking of that you triggered my thought here was there should probably be an executive sponsor identified, like for this, right? Who's executively sponsoring part of this data set, or what, someone, again, here's where I have problems with this, right? I think there's this concept of like, we're in the middle here. We're the data engineers, right? Sometimes we don't even control the source data. We're just told to pick it up, do something to it, and produce a report. So I think an executive sponsor is important here too. Again, going back to Matthew Roach's speaking engagement, he was like, yeah, if you don't have an executive sponsor, you will fail. Like 90% of
Yeah.
all good BI practices has an executive sponsor. So I think you're in tune with that executive sponsor. You're having them help you drive this, because when data comes in wrong and someone needs to go tap on another department's shoulder, hey, your data is junk. Hey, we're doing too much cleaning of our data. You got to fix it. Like there has to be some exception
Right.
reporting there.
So
and
I fear that some of this, and I think everything we're saying is what should be, but I also fear some of it's a little idealistic for a lot of
no doubt.
organizations. Okay.
Oh, no doubt. Like I don't think everyone's thinking this. Like I don't think everyone's there.
No, and I think you have a very small set of the population or organizations that would be able to implement what we're talking about. So I need to ask then, like, if the 10 people listening, or how many people are listening, like that.
All one of you are
like,
going to get.
Yeah, right. I don't.
I'm going to
have
stop
this
working on this because it's
review
too much
process.
work.
Like, I don't have this review process. It's just me. Does that mean then I can't? Therefore, I can never do a certified data set. What do you do in the interim if you're somewhere in the middle, where you don't have an executive review board that's going to look at a data set, but also you want to certify something? Like, where are you with that? Do you have to wait till you have a governance program at a level 400?
I'm gonna I'm going to do a very not weird. I'm going to do a very lazy way of answering this question,
It depends.
right? Well, it's going to depend, right?
Yeah.
If you are a team of one and you have a BI practice of a single person, you have a lot more authority to make these kinds of decisions. You can figure out what's right and what's wrong and what this will work and what will not. I do really agree that even if you're that one person, right, and you have a single data source you're managing or a couple of data sets you're certifying,
Right.
you're the help desk. You're the help desk. You're the sponsor for it. You're doing your own reviews. Like you can't peer review it with anyone. You're the only one doing the stuff. So like
I had a great year.
who will you? Yeah, I did awesome. I had 100% on all my peer reviews with myself. But I mean, until that becomes to like at the end of the day, right? Who are you providing the certified data sets to? It's someone in the organization who needs this data. So
Right.
I mean, I think there's easy things you can do. Like for sure, you can set up an email address or put on the report itself. If you have questions with this, go here. Documentation, a must. Like these are things I still think you can do. And I think it's a progression. It's a direction, right? You kind of set your eye on things that you want to be working on. There's a limited amount of time in the day. You pick the ones that you think are the most valuable to you now. Start working on those. I'm a huge agile sprint person. Like you can't get everything done at once. You can't plan it all out at once. Just start making value.
Right.
And then as you grow it, you'll figure out, oh yeah, we really should have had better documentation. We'll fix that next time, or we'll add that as we go forward, and you just improve it.
So I'm gonna take what I'm hearing and break it down in my mind, and hopefully break it down for others, because I think when we start to use the terms executive sponsorship, governance, etc., it scares people like Tommy. I mean, what I mean by that is the other side of the equation, which is, hey, I don't have this stuff set up. I'm not a level 400. I'm listening for the first time. You guys are talking adoption roadmap. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Right.
And I would encourage you to go listen to our previous episodes to catch up.
Yeah.
However, right, I think what I'm hearing the same of is, do you have to have an executive sponsor? No. But if we're talking about a certified something, you are going to need agreement of how something gets certified from leadership, and that is typically not you. It is going to be the owner of the company,
Right.
or the person that is going to make decisions off of the really important data that the organization or your business or your 10-person team is creating, because you would say it is worth going through certifying this data, because the reporting and the information that we're going to look at allows us to make a decision that could impact the company. And the distinction here, I think, is you build a solid process by which something in the Wild West or promoted gets to this certified endorsement. And then I think that's where the conversation pivots. Regardless of if you're in small or large organizations, whoever's doing the certification is basically putting their name on it.
Yep.
And there are consequences, most likely, for things not being right?
Yep.
Like that's where if it is a finance report and finance is looking at something and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, we're going to make this decision, and guess what, it was a fat finger and somebody messed something up in the data set and your validation process didn't go through,
in the Excel sheet that we were using as a data source.
And you just cost the business $500,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Tommy,
Heads
you
will roll.
certify the data sets. Like
you will double triple check that stuff.
Part of your yearly review if you still keep your job.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. No, I totally get it.
There are real consequences of ownership and what it means to be certified. So I think that spans any size of organization, and that's why there's value behind endorsement, or value behind saying we are 99% positive that everything coming through here has gone through a rigorous examination. And or maybe part of your SLA is we're monitoring the data that's coming through here all the time to ensure accuracy.
Well,
right.
And this is, I mean, the penalty of things changes how you handle the data, right? So to Seth's point, right? But there's also SEC filings. If you file your financial stuff incorrectly, executives go to
Yeah,
jail.
man.
That's how it works. Like that's a governed law that if you do that incorrectly, and that's why you see, I think, around the financial side of things, so much rigor around checking data and making sure the numbers are right and having other people review it. And there's like a whole, you're accountants. You have people who are schooled to make sure the data is coming through financially correctly. So like, I'm saying you have to have that for every single purpose of your business, but someone's saying what's the value or importance of the data at various levels. And I think again, maybe Seth and I take a very like concerted effort around what is certified, but I think
otherwise don't use
rules,
it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
Don't
and I'm
just
thinking
don't
of,
use it.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking of different use cases because when you obviously a certified data set, obviously we understand the need, but I'm thinking of the report, the kind of what's being painted on top. Imagine you had a certified data set, all the data sets are right and certified. We know that we're pulling in the right relationships, but could you have a report, let's say, that was just a table with a bunch of filters? We know the data set is correct, but how much does the report on top of it matter? Because obviously, when we say data set does not necessarily contains the measures, I
Yeah,
guess, but we've talked a lot
yeah.
about the sources of data and the relationships. We haven't really talked about that, what people see. So, and the reason I asked is like, so imagine you have the right data set, everything's qualified, you were pulling in the information correctly, but you had a data set that was basically a blank slate with a bunch of filters. Well, I mean, in that situation, someone could theoretically put a bunch of filters together, pull out a wrong number, but you could say the data set's correct. So how important is it
Well, that's
that
different,
this?
Tommy. So that's different. So you're talking certified data sets,
Yeah,
but those reports, right, are probably a lot more catered as well, right? So if we're talking,
sure.
there's different levels of certification here, right?
No,
You have
yeah,
certified data sets, you have certified reports, and then you have certified apps, right? So if you're distributing
hmm
stuff or distributing content, and this is where I think Melissa Coates, again, I'm going to give her mad credit to this because I think this is a really good idea. She has a specific label, an image that goes on reports that have been certified, that have been reviewed. There's like a stamp of approval that goes along with those things. And I think that's a really good idea that gives you like
right.
that metered level of, hey, here's a report that's been built on this data set. The team that built this one has their signature. They're putting their signature on it, and no one else is allowed to use it unless it comes from that team.
And the reason I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate, because imagine you have this gold data set and you build a report off of it, and I screw up the measure, right? I'm creating a report level measure for a certified data set, and I screw it up. I use the wrong date. I use the wrong like instead of order date, I'm using sell date.
Hmm?
I'm doing all this screwed up stuff, but it's a certified data set. What's the situation there? Because you would still look and say, well, the data set's certified. So
Is the
you
report certified?
you can't certify a report, I
You can
believe.
certify an app, and the
You
app
can
contains
certify an app, but you
that.
can't certify a report.
Well, and that's where the Melissa says, putting a little sticker or a label or something that comes with
Right.
that report. It says this has been reviewed.
Okay.
So
But
I do think yes, you can't technically certify a single report and mark it as such certified, but I do think this is stuff where if you're going to be certifying data sets, maybe this is something. Again, these data sets are important at this point.
yeah.
You're assuming that people can build off of this. You have build permissions. If
Yeah.
we're certifying stuff, I don't know if I'm giving build permissions to other people to
And
build
I
off
think that's what I'm saying.
to build up that data set.
The way we're treating certified data sets, because if you
Yeah,
look in the data set hub, which
who's
you
going to
can't
support that?
disable, it shows you the data set that's certified and shows you all the reports that are dependent on it. So you can't necessarily escape that. So the way you guys are referring to it, and not saying I disagree or agree, but the way we're referring to it is like if you have a certified data set, it should really be a very protected report.
Agreed. And a
It-
protected app. If you're, I mean,
yeah,
you can put. There's nothing that says if you certify an app, there is the possibility of putting non-certified data sets inside an app and publishing an app with things that would be certified and things that would not be certified.
right.
So again, you have to as the developer in the Power BI space, you gotta
Right.
be very careful about it. Alex Power
So, yeah.
says you can certify reports, just FYI.
Okay. That'll be fun. That'll be especially fun. So you can certify the data set, but not the report.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
you
threw
can
me.
Yeah.
certify reports.
Yeah.
You threw
Reports
me
are
for a loop
certified.
there
So,
because
right.
I
But if
was
the
seeing that as a
underlying
pretty
data set,
significant gap.
yeah, but the underlying data set that is certified, let's say this is everything that's been vetted. So, anyways, I know that's not necessarily off
But
topic, but
that's a
that's
lineage chain though too though,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be able to have a report or an app that is certified if it doesn't use a certified data set. Or should you?
Oh
Are you
boy.
Well, I think this
are
goes
you
back to the
circumventing? Are you
New
this goes
can
switching
of
back to
things
the
new
around?
can of
cleaning the
worms.
house.
New can of worms.
What do you think,
It
Tommy?
no, it's almost like you certified the land you're going to build on, and then you hired your brother-in-law to build the house. Like,
Well,
but
that would be the use case you outline, which
yeah,
is I have the perfect data set and somebody screwed it up because they don't know how to write DAX.
right. I have the official lease of the land, but I can't build. Right. So, but it's a very interesting use case where the way we're talking about a certified data set, I would imagine then that report has the least amount of filters possible, because when someone would go to the report or the data set, they are certain the numbers are right. There's no predefined filters that they have to do. That's what I'm
Why?
imagining here.
If you
I don't imagine that there's a
Why?
lot of, because I think then people can find different information or different numbers depending on the filters. Because let's say when you say certified data
the
set,
filters should not get you to the different answers. If
no, well,
if you're changing your filters gets two people to two different answers, then I would question your
Reevaluate the report.
I would
not
certify
I would question
it.
I would
do
question
not
the
underestimate the consumer.
I would question the build of the report or the build of the data set.
Right.
Because you should be able you should be able to if someone comes to you with two different numbers, you should be able to ask them, like, how did you get to that number? And you should and they should be able to show you what they filtered to, and that should either be right or wrong.
Right, but
someone's already vetted that. I'm not questioning that at this point.
I'm just saying, don't underestimate someone even with 3 options for filters.
So here's the thing, Tommy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and where I see you kind of shaking your head, right? Because in most report builds, we are not doing rigorous testing.
Mm-hmm.
We are not spending time with QA or the person who's like saying, taking 2 minutes going, yep, Tommy, your report's great.
Yep.
Like if you're like, and we kind of glossed over all of the different breakdowns. We have data sets, we have reports, we have apps, right? I think we fine data sets or sources of information. We get it. Like we can cleanse it, validate it, ensure our metrics are good, monitor it, etc. But in the report land, there's a whole different set of criteria that should be there. Call it the governance or call it yourself, right? Or there's an agreement that there's a process that report goes through before it's certified. And part of that process needs to be rigorous testing. Because to your point, yes, if you stick something wild in a filter pane and somebody goes and clicks on it and there's no relationship to the fact table or something, or some other calculation got borked or something came off weird, like, yes, that's the stuff that comes through testing or verification that report is ready to have a certified label put on top of it.
Right.
Because you're ensuring that the experience from the end user is delivering trusted information regardless of how they use it. So to your point, could you simplify that by not including any filters? Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Could you simplify it by not having like a whole bunch of different calculations that aggregate data in different ways on different tables? Yeah, you could.
And so
and
this is where I would
only the way we're referring to a certified data set. And I'm agreeing, but I'm saying if we were to take it that measure,
that measure better work. If that measure doesn't work in all cases that you think it needs to be used on the report, and again, you're locking down the experience of the report too, right? This is not, again, you're assuming that people can go in and build whatever they want on top of the data set.
Right.
That may or may not be the case on certified things. I'm thinking that certified data set has a very limited group of people who can build on top of it, as well as a very limited people who have the reports that have been built on top of that are like a read-only report kind of thing. And you're not doling out Excel sheets attached to an analyze in Excel off of certified data sets all the time. I don't know. That might be a select group of people that can only do that because they so there's a whole level of training thing that goes along with this too, right? We talked about, certified data sets come with training, reports come with training. So how you expect to use it. If this is part of the process. To get access to these things, you have to be going through like this checkbox.
Yeah.
But the thing is like that checkbox is that document or
Mhm.
whatever that there's collective agreement that likely goes up the chain, right?
Right.
I like it, Joe Sirkowski in the chat, or it says, like I think outlines what I would qualify as like a good label for promoted
Mhm.
data set,
Yeah.
which is, users want us to create a report that we're responsible for the data integrity,
Right.
there's a like kind of a high level, like, of course I trust that you're putting a report together correctly, right? And maybe the BI team or somebody who reviews something from the business, or that level of like initial scrutiny gets that first promoted label, right? As opposed to just the Wild West of stuff.
Right.
But at some point, you're gonna get in, like, if you're going to use endorsed content, you should have like the before certification. I think what we're hammering on is that is a hard process that's agreed on by the organization that happens across the board on whatever object gets that label.
Yep.
I think we asked this, but I can't help but this to me hammers the point. If you have a certified data set, theoretically, all reports should then be certified that are built off of it.
Oh, totally.
I can't imagine. Okay, like that's you cannot.
I think this would be a requirement, right? You're not going to go build a certified data set, and then you're going to go hang off a report that has an ad hoc Excel sheet stuck on it, and then saying, "Oh, no, now that's certified too." Well, no, you should have fixed the data set so it has the things you need, so that it can be like, again, this is, I think Alex Powers was talking about this in the chat. He's like, it goes back to like trust and a certification, and it's like it's a data lineage thing. Like, you want to be able to look from the report. So this is where I think, again, I was talking about this with a client recently. Ideally, it would be great to have like the report and say, show me the lineage. And it like takes you like right into Purview, and you can say, here's the report, here's the data set. I can see all the tables. Where did those tables come from? And I can see all the way down. And again, it's this trust thing.
Right.
How did you get to that sales table? Where did it come from? Oh, it came from this SQL server that provided the data that went through bronze, silver, gold. And we can see that it did certain things, and I have descriptions of what happens in each of these tables, right? It's all documented. Right. It's ready to go. Someone can go take a peek and see where it came from. I think that's relevant for certified stuff.
And I would agree. And Alex brought a whole other can of worms with what about a composite model if you had one data set, but
I would say, my opinion there, composite models are not ready. I mean, they're good. They're interesting. I don't think they're ready for prime time. The things I've heard about them, like they're just not performant enough. There's very small sets of use cases where they make sense. And I'm
going to add this to our idea board.
I'll probably, I'm not sure if I'm ready to use them yet for full-time certified stuff.
So I think I would agree that you poke a bear on that one, right? I think people who in the BI space that you start using composite models automatically assume that the back end is going to serve up data in a way that's acceptable for a report. And I don't think so. Like, can you make it work really effective? Yes, but there's also a bunch of work on the back end that you need to do to enhance the extraction of data in a manner that is going to serve a Power BI report.
I would agree with that.
Right.
I would totally agree with that.
It's just, I would say it's not that it doesn't work. It just requires a different set of skills to go back and make it work in an acceptable fashion. Because is it going to work in memory? No, it's not. It's got to pull the data. It's got to do it really fast.
Yeah.
I know our first episode for January 2022.
If your systems don't accept or allow that because they're slow, guess what? Your reports are slow.
Yeah. So one last thing about the certified, because we haven't even talked about promoted yet and what should qualify that.
I don't think anyone cares about promoted.
I mean, don't know.
If anyone can, if Tommy can just promote something, like, how do we trust? Like, what's the level of trust that goes along with that? If you look at the documentation from Microsoft, certified says Tommy said this is certified. This is certified by Tommy. Put your name to something.
Right.
Promoted is just, it's promoted. We don't know.
So promoted has no marginal value whatsoever.
I would say not ever, but it's less, like way less valuable to me than what I see at certified level.
Well, obviously. I mean, obviously certified has that significance, but like promoted has no intrinsic value, or really like the marginal value is nil or nearly.
Well, we defined a bunch of rules around what's the hurdles to get into certified, right? You could try to enforce promoted, but what's your gate to tell people that they follow the rules?
Right.
Did you
Okay.
document it? Do you have columns, as your measures right? Who's looking over your shoulder to make sure that things were correct? Promoted doesn't anyone can promote anything.
Well,
I
not
think
necessarily. Okay. Well, besides the governance of anyone can do it, the idea of promoted, does that have any role to you that would actually provide value to an organization? If you had some more restrictions around it, or call it something else, intermediary,
But what do restrictions
something in
do?
between nothing and certified. Should there be something in between?
I think in my mind, promoted. Well, it could be used. Like the thing that comes to mind would be promoted would be a method by which a business unit or user, right, could say,
Donald's saying in the chat right now.
given my experience, I think that this data set or object, right, should be certified. I would like it to go through the certification process.
I like that
Otherwise, what's the
idea.
point?
It's a
Otherwise,
precursor.
what's the point?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Because like in the same way that Matthew talks about like the adoption, right? Like if I'm an end user, right? Or
Yeah.
I'm the DAX guy
I really like
or
that idea.
report builder in a different department. But I'm not like, but there's a BI team or there's a known path on how I get my report, which I'm deeming as like extremely important above and beyond, just a normal report because of whatever the criteria for certification is, because people are going to be making decisions. If I'm tasked to create the value in that report through data, through whatever, through this process, I'm saying as that end user, hey, I want this to go through that promotion process because we as an organization deem that necessary. Because otherwise, what's the point? You're just going to get a bunch of people that are like, yeah, this is like certified in my mind, right? To the other point, because endorsement doesn't mean that the builder isn't responsible for the data or
Right.
something coming through the report. If you're like that's sharing. If you don't have confidence in your report and you didn't validate it, don't share it. And
Yeah.
then as you're escalating or the importance or value of the information, that's where I think endorsement starts to matter. Is you're going to start to put gates on it. You're going to say, hey, if I'm putting my name on this, but I need it to go through the process by which our organization is saying like to be the gold standard of data and reporting, it needs to go through this process, but this thing is teed up to do that. And you shouldn't have tons of those through the org. Like
No.
it should be a slow process, but it also elicits, some of the other conversation of like, do you have a team? Probably that
Right.
vets this, runs it through the process, or deems it not important and removes the flag.
I don't know.
So I want to jump in here because
Alright.
there's some really good stuff in the chat that's coming here, right? So in the chat, there's some stuff here, and Seth, I really liked your idea of saying promoted is your path to get to certified. So I would also argue it's the intersection of a promoted data set and high usage would be your candidates for certified data sets.
Yeah.
So if you think about like, okay, someone makes a data set, they promote it, people start using it, it becomes this organic thing, we're doing self-service, whatever, right? Maybe it has controls, maybe it doesn't. But I think from the organization standpoint, this is a monitoring thing, right? Monitor what is being promoted, monitor how many people are using promoted data sets, and you can use that as a flag for the organization, a kind of an organic flag. Something's been promoted. Now I can watch the usage of that, and I always address the top 5 or 10 most used promoted reports or stuff, right? That's where as a BI governance team I focus my efforts. I focus on what's being used right now. And maybe we go talk to those teams or those people who develop those things and say, show us what you did. Is this a good candidate to go through these extra loopholes, extra checkboxes to push it to certified? I think that's great.
I like that idea.
I think it's the opposite.
You find the data
Because-
sets that are not being used and use
No,
those?
I think if you were talking about executive sponsorship,
Yeah.
you were talking about like
Yep.
what is an organization saying? I'm going to spend the extra time to certify something. There's a gate to get in there, right? And there's a review process, I think, that happens on a, if we're saying, hey, promoted is a good way to get into certified.
Yep.
Like there has to be the criteria by which you're even accepted into the certification thing.
Oh,
Does the
totally.
business want to certify this? No.
Don't.
Demoted. It's not like
Yeah,
it's not
not
worth
worth
the
it.
time for certification.
Yeah, but
Like,
if you see high
um,
usage though, right? Does
hi-
that change the business's need if
that
it needs to be used or
but
not?
that's what I'm saying is like that's part of the gate to get in, right? Like, hey, business, my usage on this report is skyrocketing.
Yeah,
Here's the data in there. The business could be like, okay, that's great. I'm glad. You can keep, maybe we keep it at promoted, or it's good, but it's not worth us spending 3 weeks to vet it and stick a certification label on it.
agreed.
for nothing that's
But
used. Yeah.
but at least
Well,
that's a
the one thing
candidate.
I did,
But it's a
yeah.
candidate for review. That's what I'm saying. Is like
Well, see,
it may not, it may go to certified, it may not, but it's one of those reports. It's hit enough visibility, in bigger companies where, yeah, now we want to see if we need to take the time to evaluate to make it an official thing.
see,
And
if promoted is only a candidate to review to be certified, I don't know. That sounds a little subprime mortgage to me. Like it's a
I don't know.
mortgage.
What do you mean?
I don't
No,
understand that statement.
okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you're saying something's promoted and promoted is a candidate to be certified, to me, my automatic thought is this is not an actual, like, I can't necessarily trust this data, because if we're saying the certified is that stamped approval, we know we
Yeah,
have the approval. The
that's
promoted is
fine.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is not what
Then
that
why
is.
would I use that? Yeah.
Why would you use what?
A why would I use something that I know has not been reviewed yet or approved yet?
Oh, it doesn't just automatically go there. This is a
Is
candidate for
Well,
release. You look at your what are the gates that you need to go to get through to certified. Promoted with
yeah.
high usage is only where I look for my next report that I want to go do rigorous details around to make sure that it gets into the certified space. Like, I'm not saying automatically, oh yeah, because you have high usage and you made a promoted data set, yeah, we're just going to
Yeah.
automatically take it and make it a real one. No, it
No, well,
now starts the process of all these other
sure.
checkboxes does it have an SLA? Does it have peer reviews? Does it have this? Is it using
Okay.
different data sources?
I mean, I would
Think from the
say
consumer.
this. I would say this, right? Like, maybe the direction of it only being promoted is only going to be something that is on the path to certification isn't the right approach, right? But at the same level, there should be minimum criteria then that it's, I guess it's twofold. There should be minimum criteria by which something has to pass before it gets to promoted. The problem with that is anybody can promote their own stuff,
That's my issue with it. Yes,
right? So
exactly.
there aren't controls around like, nope, you're not promoted.
Yep.
But there could be around like the organization saying like, guys, if anybody sticks something in promoted, we're gonna review it and we're
Mhm.
gonna either reject it or not. Otherwise, it doesn't hold any standing. If
Yeah.
like there is no difference in my mind unless you use like promoted as no data set ever gets endorsed unless it goes through this minimal team or this verification process to get promoted. And if you start, how do you manage that? There's no gates, there's no
Yeah.
like, especially the larger the organization, so
Huh?
there's no point in putting a ton of process around something when you don't have that flag that isn't controlled by everybody. Which
Agreed.
is why I would say, like, something that, making a broad stroke in an organization that says don't stick things in promoted unless you want it to run through the verification process makes sense to me, because then people are going to be like, no, I don't want to. Does that mean that it's not like vetted valuable data report? No, it just
Okay.
means the company's not going to invest a ton of time into all of the things that you deem important to make it certified. And there are some things, and that's why I say there is a gate on this, because there are some things that are going to cost money for the business to do.
Yeah,
And that isn't everything, that isn't all data in an
Right.
organization.
I agree. I agree.
So think from a consumer point of view, and Alex just put up interesting thing. All this is around the bucket of everything's called endorsement. Like you want to endorse your data set, not necessarily. Anyways, I
That's
find that
what's coming out
interesting.
of the
I
scanner
find that
pay.
interesting.
No,
Yeah,
that's what he's saying. Its endorsement is coming
it
out of the
doesn't.
scanner
That's in the
API.
no, that's in the settings too. It says endorse the data set or
Oh,
endorsement.
I
That's
gotcha.
the
Yeah,
drop down, so to speak.
yeah.
For certified and promotion, they're under the same bucket. Now, not to do absolutes, but think from a consumer point of view, the way we're talking, right? If I saw 3 data sets, one was certified, one was promoted, one had nothing. why would I ever look at the non-promoted or certified data set if I know that promoted is still going to be reviewed to know that this is in line with the company, it's been, labeled? How do I know even that where's that level of, I at least know that a non-promoted or certified data set has still had some review, right? Like we because
I
we're
don't think you can,
basically
I don't think you can guarantee that.
well, you,
I would say so. I think it depends on your audience, right? If Tommy's looking for data and you're just looking around to see what's going on, yeah, go look at a promoted data set, see if it actually helps you out. But if you're going to go into a meeting with other people and make decisions on things, I don't think I'm using promoted data sets. If
so
we
you
had,
only use a certified data set.
I would hope so, or if nothing else, like we've already had the agreement of like I've already built a data model that we're going to work towards getting it to be certified.
No, I disagree because the way we're making it sound is everything's the Wild West but a certified data set, but that shouldn't be the case at all.
But
Tommy,
but there's no controls around it. That's what I'm saying.
what is the point? Like your argument right now is what if your organization doesn't use endorsement at all? What are people supposed to think about the
No.
reports
What
that
I'm
are shared
saying,
with them?
if you had certified data sets, the opposite side of this is then that those other data sets that are in the service are just someone randomly published and
No,
no
that
one
is not
vetted
what
it.
that is saying. That is
Okay.
not what that is saying. What it should be saying is if this thing is certified, you know that if you go to the documentation that's linked to it,
Yep.
that it has gone through this process that the business has deemed important enough to spend a bunch more time
And
on
money.
to
Yep.
Okay.
ensure that all of these checkboxes that we talked about in this entire program, right, are filled before we present you the data.
Okay.
All data within a company does not need to be certified.
Okay.
So does that
And
mean
I
that you
agree.
can't trust reports in an organization that aren't certified? No, it should mean, in my mind, that the organization deems certain data
This
sets
stuff is important.
require certification so
Right.
that they can trust the output of
Right.
it because there's real business impact to them.
So if I'm,
That's what I think the value of it comes behind.
yeah.
If you want to modify that to whatever that process is, feel free, right?
So
Like if it's an
Yeah. So
easier gate or easier process and it's not a huge lift, fantastic. Then
l-
like go for a easier
let
certification.
me play a little scenario here real quick, right? Let's 3 data sets. This is talking about like sales benefits, right? Sales bonuses by the end of the year, right?
yeah.
End of the year, we've got 3 different data sets, right? We're going to have those meetings with those sales team, and we're looking at one that's certified. So someone's looked at it. So we've had the checks and balances have been accomplished. We have another one that's promoted, one that Michael made. And for all of my report, for all of my numbers, I made a new measure, and I did a little switch statement, and I added 10% to my bonus just because I know how to write a measure, right? And then there's the uncertified one, which like who knows what's in there, but like I think in that scenario, if you look at like that data set and say which one of these things should we actually be reporting on, someone has made it important enough to say bonuses are important. We will only be reporting out of that data set. The company has said this is important enough to make sure that we spent the time, the money, the effort to make sure that this is right and we can trust it. We can't change this. You can't manipulate it. That is, the spend has happened. The documentation has been produced. We think that's certified. That's when I would say like you look at those situations. But to Seth's point, there's a whole bunch of data across the organization, and everyone's a little bit of an information worker at some level, whether you're moving things around in Excel or building your own reports or whatever. So how do you like? There's other parts you're going to have to trust other data from other people, and I think, to what we've been talking here, the promoted part, I think promoted is a good flag, but I think it's very hard to enforce. I think that's where I'm sitting on promoted. It's hard to enforce because there is no gate to allow a group of people to go through training to know what promoted is about. I can't gate it as much. And so I think because there's not as much gating from a governance standpoint, I kind of have to treat promoted as a bit more of a wild, wild west item.
So
There are 2 points that I like that Alex is chiming in here, right? A diversion of making promoted, right, being a stopgap to
Yep.
certification is maybe those 2 things are completely unrelated. And maybe it is like, hey, I'm a department level, or I'm a guy in a department, and I'm saying this has met my standards for organizational wide publishing, right? And
Mhm.
it's promoted. I can get that route. Like you don't have to. It doesn't have to be sequential in the endorsement here. And maybe these are two different paths for endorsement. It's just one of them carries weight and one of them doesn't. And the other one that reinforces my thought around this whole certification endorsement is the other one where he basically says like Microsoft might have 2 certified data sets. That's a huge organization,
Right.
man, right? But it also goes, I think, to the point that a certified data set should be really hard to get and require that a lot of work be put into
Mm-hmm.
like getting that label,
Yep.
and a direct result of that is going to be that the organization deems it valuable enough that they want to spend the time to do that.
Mhm.
And that's where that executive or whatever sponsorship or that thought comes into play,
Yeah.
because whether or not you have a governance body, whether or not whatever, like somebody's got to say, hey Tommy, yeah, I want you to go spend 3 weeks doing this and make sure that going forward everything's in place and you got checks and balances, and it's all like you're doing a lot more work than you normally do probably on the data side
Right.
to ensure that what is being produced is always going to be trustworthy,
Yeah.
or always find a problem before some
Right.
report end user does.
And I absolutely agree with that because to me, in an ideal world, the way it would be structured would be you have anything that's certified is in a sense the report to what people view is very static. It's very like corporate level. It's your corporate numbers that you report to the board of directors or that would go public. Not a lot of filters. It's literally your high level numbers. This and again, if you were to take Alex's point where there's only 2 at Microsoft, I imagine they're kind of similar to that too, where you have something that's just the high level dashboard of the numbers that are the state of the company. That way, too, it allows like if you had a marketing report that had to deal with like social media platforms, which would probably never be certified, but it can at least be promoted because we at least vetted it. It's never going to go certified with those data sets because it's not necessarily something you're reporting to your board of directors, or you're reporting to the executive level team that bonus is based off of, or the company goals. So that way also there's still the trust. I mean, I think it's another conversation, but I'll argue that if you can't get you need to be able to have a way to get people in line if everyone's endorsing their own data sets for promoted to kind of get them aligned, just the way you do with workspaces and making sure people are publishing in the right places and using
Correct.
the right. If you can't get people to stay in line with promoted, then you're probably not having a good idea for them using the right data sets and style and naming conventions either. So I'll argue that, but I think that's another day. Promoted is something that you has been vetted to a degree, but it's either more department level or we can say that with the certainty, but it will never be something that's being reported, in a SEC filing, so to speak. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
I'm,
and
I'm,
that instills trust in the other data sets. Anyways, yeah,
yeah, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be like a process, or somebody has to say in their mind, like, yes, I've done all these things before I stick a label on there.
right,
But there's no, like, you can't, since you can't control it, like,
yeah. Well, I can't control people using the right style. I mean, to me, it's the same thing. Like, I better have some process in place where people are using the right naming conventions and right dimensional tables. If they're not doing that, then it doesn't matter what promoted or whatever they're doing. So, anyways, I know that's a little off topic, but the same idea because I want to make sure that any report that's published in the service is at least been vetted and that someone can trust and make a decision off of, not only the certified data set. Then what's the point of all the other data sets? And I think that's kind of the crux of my questioning here is if you only trust the certified data set or saying that's what we vetted as a company, then why would I want to make a decision off a non-certified data set as a consumer? Why would I want to act on
Because the
that?
data you're trying to make decisions on isn't part of certified data sets yet, right?
But why would I want to
yeah,
make a decision off of it?
Because you
If I
don't
things you
have the
do
data.
every day.
okay, yeah.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Do every
Like,
day. You have
it,
systems. You have systems all over the place.
Okay.
Records and data in 500 million
yeah,
places in your
Right.
organization.
yep.
Like, it's not all going to be
Right.
in the enterprise space, right?
Right. Okay. Yes.
Does that stop the business from working, Tommy?
No.
No,
No.
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Does it mean you're not making decisions? No, because the information worker knows their data, right?
Right.
So even if it's fed through them in a report and they're looking at it, they're like, no,
Right.
Tommy, this isn't right.
Right.
Yep.
That happens all day long. And we're
Right.
not saying that like this automatically circumvents or tells people that they can't trust reporting, right?
Right.
It's whoever's building the report has to go through the same things that they do all the time
Right.
to ensure that there's confidence in the report that they build.
It's just my degree of skepticism. Again, talking about words I can say correctly, but anyways, no, I think
I
we're all
think it's
kind
fair.
of-
I think there's in any organization with any amount of data, I think there's over a little bit of level of skepticism with everything you're given.
Sure.
You're just kind of born with it. Like it's got to be part of what your process is. You come in, this is also what I think you see in Excel a lot. You get given an Excel sheet and there's or data that's given to you, right? If I didn't build it, I can't quite trust it, right? So there's this kind of inherent trust that has to go along with things that you have to. I was working with a gentleman a long time ago where he worked at, I think it was like Miller Coors or something like that. But they had a system. They had a reporting system. Even if the numbers were wrong, you trusted them because there was a whole nother team that was working on the data, and that was the story of truth. You can't get your data from anywhere else. That was where we put our rigor around, and the organization trusted that data. That's what they make decisions on. And someone else's neck is on the line if that data was wrong. Someone else had the responsibility of fixing it when it was incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really what we're talking about here. Is we're saying, can I trust it? I think this is really what it boils down to. Is it trustable data that we can attribute someone's responsibility to make sure that it's right?
Yeah, and I think Alex makes a good point, right? Accountability is where this comes down.
Yes.
Right. Like if you have if accountability automatically starts with the first label of promoted, because obviously we talked about it certainly does in the certified space.
Right.
But if you're the one that throws that label on something, does that mean something at the end of the year, right? Or if it's not,
Is
if
it tied to
people
your
are
goals?
having problem,
Yeah.
I mean, if there's meaning around it impacting your performance or your review or your then it starts to have more meaning to it. And
yes,
it's just it's the gate to flip that label on and off is pretty low.
Low. Man, this has been an amazing conversation.
Delightful.
The YouTube chat has been just on fire with just really good comments, really good thoughts around this. Some people, I mean, even in the chat window, some people were in organizations where they are the sole data developer, and they own it all. And there are other people who have been communicating like they're part of a larger team. So I think what certified means is going to vary per application, per business. This is a very bad answer, but it's going to depend on where you're at and what your company thinks is important and how many certified data sets you have. So great conversation. I learned a lot. I think this was really good. I took a copious amounts of notes for the blog. So whoever's writing the blog, I had a
swell time.
Yeah. I have about four areas that I think we can kind of bucket the certified stuff into. Does the data set have documentation? Seems like one bucket that we talked about. Is there a rules around certification? Things that we're going to accept or not accept? Is there monitoring in place for the data pipeline, for that data, for that report or data set? And then is there support for it? I think those are the key topics. I think if you have those four things kind of show up, you're now like, that's a good candidate for a report that has a certified label to it. So anyways, thank you all very much. We really appreciate you listening in. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. For those of you who are new to the podcast, at the end, we always ask you if you enjoyed this, if you learned something from here, please just do us a favor. Just go share it with somebody else. If you got a laugh out of this with Seth and Mike ganging up on Tommy and yelling at him for how bad his ideas are, go ahead. we really did. I felt like we were beating you up today, Tommy.
I enjoyed it.
I
felt like I made it.
Yeah, you made some good valid cases there. So we had some fighting back and forth, which was good. Makes it interesting.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I'm surprised. I was not thinking this morning when I woke up, this is controversial. Did not think I was going to be so, argumentative today, but whatever. Maybe it's lack of sleep. So Kevin asks, is there a holiday schedule and where can we find the podcast? So we just ask that you share this podcast with one other person that you find valuable to this. Our intent for the holiday schedule is to just barrel on through. We're not stopping. I'm not traveling.
No.
We're going to keep on going. So we're going to just stay with the cadence every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. even through vacation. I think we'll actually have more fun. We'll be more relaxed, and
Yeah.
we'll have to put some fun Santa hats
Maybe
on for the videos or something.
if anything, maybe those will be longer conversations because we don't have
Oh,
work to go to.
because there's not so
Oh yeah.
well,
Extended
My wife
episodes.
loves
bonus
that. So
bonus content. Awesome.
hey,
Tommy,
yeah,
where can we find the podcast?
you can find the podcast anywhere they are available. Apple and Spotify. If you're watching live right now, we have 66 episodes now. You can
Woo.
listen to some of them. We argue just like this. I think one of them is data flows, and it was just as heated. Some are more fun or just as fun. If you are listening right now and you want to join the conversation, you're hearing a lot about the YouTube chat. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central Time on Follow Power BI Tips on YouTube and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. Fun conversation. Have a great week and have a great holiday this year. We'll do more of those. I guess there's a lot more time to
We'll see you
have people
Tuesday.
have happy holiday stuff. See you guys later. I need to get off this call. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.